I'm just a little songbird, try to fly my way homeward with the melody, and I make the beat. Don't know where it'll take me, cause when I'm in the dark of night, I sing my way back to the light. Come along with me and your heart will see that a song changes everything. And the music is moving me forward on to brighter things, on to bigger dreams. Let the harmony carry me, even if the sky's falling down. I know the sound will lead me out. Come along with me and I know you'll see that a song changes everything. Oh, ooh,
So pretty.
Waiting for the fade out.
Right. Her voice is so angelic. So in my head, I'm like,
I know.
And there's feathers falling from the sky and glitter and stuff.
It's a good thing our mutes are muted during that part. Well, I don't know. Maybe they should be unmuted. You can hear us singing. Good morning, everyone, or whenever you're watching. Good afternoon. I'm Catherine Perticini.
I'm Andrea Vocab Sanderson.
Welcome to Arts for the Health of It. We're glad you're here. If you are listening, watching, wherever you are engaging with us today, we're just so happy that you're with us. We heard back from a listener from an episode we did a couple weeks ago with Allison Body. She sent in her keyhole reflection project, and we wanted to share it real quick. And so if you're listening, there's an image of a keyhole. There's this beautiful butterfly that she created with it. And this listener shared, "This was such a great exercise for me. It really made me identify and name the toxic traits that send me into the spiral. This is exactly what I needed." So if you haven't tried that project, you can always go back and listen to that episode.
Right. And so also on the outside, there are words. I'm glad that she used text because as a poet, I definitely identify with text. You've got the word timidness, comfort zone, loneliness, limits, putting up walls, shyness, uncertainty, attitude, all of these words. And I felt really connected to that because when I drew my keyhole, the outside was like 2 beds and then a whole bunch of Z's and then me asleep. And it was just this idea of me sleeping on my power, sleeping on my energy and my ability to do things like either with lethargy or just being burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
And recently a friend of mine, she has an art exhibit coming up and she asked me to write a poem about rest and the need for rest and how important it is. And I struggled with that thing because I was like, I don't rest enough. So how am I going to write a poem about rest?
Like rest, I need it.
Absolutely. So yeah, I felt like a liar as I was writing the poem. And then you know what? After I wrote that poem, I had the best night's sleep because they canceled some stuff and I couldn't go work my job the next day because of inclement weather. And I was like, and now the prophecy has been fulfilled.
That's right. You summoned the rest that you needed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, thank you, weather, for being really crappy so that I could get some sleep. Yeah. So we got something exciting coming up today. I'm excited.
We do. We are really eager to bring on our guest today. One other quick thing before we get started, we want to share with you this creativity initiative that is being initiated by our new board member, Amy Latta. She was on our episode last week, but it's called Make 1,000, Give 1,000. And what you do is you make a heart for patients, caregivers, or medical staff. It can be out of anything you like. And you send it to Hearts Need Art. And all this information you can get on our website, heartsneedart.org. There's a link up there for Make 1,000, Give 1,000. And so this is a way for you to share your creativity with the communities we serve. For every heart we receive, a donor is going to give $1 up to $1,000. So we would love it if you participated in this project. Again, there's the P.O. Box And when you do make your heart, use the hashtag make 1,000, give 1,000 so that we can track all the good work that you're doing.
That's right. Put it up on your social media so that people can see. I know a lot of times when people give, they want it to be in silence. They don't want other folks to know. But in this situation, we need to let other people know that we are giving, that we're doing this creative initiative, because it will inspire other people to do it as well. And it's such a powerful thing because you're making something with your own hands and then you're sending it off. And as you send it off, you know that funds are being generated to help heal and bring some art into people's lives.
Yes, double whammy.
Mhm. Two birds, one stone.
There's also templates on that webpage that you can use that Amy has created. So if you're struggling for an idea, there's lots of ways to get inspired. So, all right, without further ado, we'd love to.
Inspiration.
Yes,
This woman is very
speaking of
inspirational.
inspiration, yes. Would you like to introduce Judy vocab?
This woman helps people create memoirs for their family. She is a videographer, a historian. She's a documenting woman who does powerful things. Please welcome to the show, Judy Seaman.
Welcome.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. But vocab, can I just rent you out whenever I need an introduction? Because
Absolutely.
fantastic.
I'm available for bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, you know, all of that.
All right. Well, thank you. And I feel like I know you a little bit because I watched the podcast from, I think, Christmas time. I know it was Christmas that you were talking about the terrible weather in Buffalo. Remember?
And
yeah,
it was so tragic. Yeah.
Yes. And I really appreciated your sensitivity. I was impressed with your teaching, and I loved that you suggested that we write about our skin. And there was something just about the way you presented it that I got my notebook, which I always have with me anyway, and I wrote a little 7-line, because you said 7-line little thing.
Yeah, I didn't want to intimidate people. So I feel like 7's the number of completion according to biblical senses. And it's just, even though it's not a round number like 8, it's not intimidating, I hope, because it's not so close to 10. So if you would share with us, Judy, we would love to hear your poem.
I would love to share with you. But first, I also want to tell Catherine that I loved your picture of the coffee.
Oh, my God.
Thank you.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. I forgot about that.
After I saw it, I was like, I need a cup of coffee stat.
I need that cup of coffee.
Thank you.
All right, here's my little poem. I will say that my daughter lived in India for a year, and I went to visit her, and so it was kind of inspired by that also. Okay. My skin traveled to a beach in India where gritty sand burrowed into its open pores like a sand dollar. Oh, I said, thank you, and gave the dollar to the beachwallah for a sand cake and a sea biscuit. Then I lay in the hot sun, my pores closing, full from my meal.
It sounded like so complete.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that, Judy. I was joking before the show that we should just sit around and read poetry for this whole episode. It's just lovely.
Stick around. We've got more poetry. I feel like we could maybe even name this episode A Day at the Beach.
This is true.
And it's very cold, and it's going to be -14, I heard, this weekend where I live. So I would like a day at a hot beach.
Yes. Oh, my God. -14.
So, Judy, if you could tell our listeners more about what you do. What is Video Memoir Creations? How did it come to be?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you how it came to be. I've been a film editor for, don't want to tell you how many years. And I, since I graduated college, I've made some documentaries, and I've been a film editor at the TV networks, mostly news. And I'm always thinking video. It's always in the back of my mind. So I moved to the Berkshires in 2010. And when you drive into the town, there's a sign that welcomes you, and it says, Lenox, Massachusetts, 1767, established 1767. So I realized that the 250th, because other towns around here were celebrating their 250th anniversary. So I realized that we weren't that far behind. I think we were 7 years away, or about 7 years away. So I decided I've got to get started. There was no committee or anything at that point. It was really too early. But I said, I know a few people. I'm just going to start interviewing people. And by the time the anniversary came about, I interviewed 62 people and made an hour video and just loved it. And what I loved about it was not, because Lenox and this area was known for being part of the Gilded Age. All the robber barons and whatever would come here. They had their mansions, and so you could memorize the dates that they came and the names of their mansions and where they are and all that stuff. But I'm more interested in the people, and I interview people whose grandparents and actually parents were servants, believe it or not, were servants during the Gilded Age, and they worked for these very wealthy families. And it's kind of like, the show PBS Masterpiece Theater, Upstairs, Downstairs. Well, I was more interested in the people from the downstairs. And the stories were fascinating. Their fathers were chauffeurs, gardeners, their mothers were maids and cooks. And I loved those stories. And so that's really what I focused on. And when I was done, I went, I want to do this more. And that's how I got started.
Wow.
And I know, can I just say that I know that you do giveaways? I have 2 giveaways, and one of them is the DVD of that.
Oh,
film.
wow.
I'm happy to give to you, and you can share it with one of your listeners.
Thank you
amazing.
so much. That is so kind and generous of you to give two giveaways. I don't, when we talk to guests, sometimes they're like, giveaways, what? But that is powerful. And I think it's kind of like if these walls could talk type of situation, which is so interesting and frankly juicy to know. It's like, this is how they're privy to these stories of how the other half lives, because they're right there in the situation with them, like part of their everyday life.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So do you have any more questions for me, or should I just continue on?
Well, so I guess tell us, how do you then, what do you do now through video memoir creations? Because you had this kind of light bulb of like, wait, I want to do more of this aspect of really hearing people's stories. And so how has that manifested?
Well, I think people, once they get over the initial shyness and self-consciousness, people really do appreciate talking about themselves, because it gives them a sense of, I'm important and value. And so people like to be interviewed. And, they just have to, like, if you treat it, we're just having a conversation. There are no cameras and lights in front of you that it can make you nervous. We're just having a conversation. Tell me about, your mother. What did she do? What did she like to cook in the kitchen? What did it smell like? What did your dad do? What time did he come home from work? And how was, just these basic, how did you get in trouble? A friend of mine always likes to ask that question. How did you get in trouble as a teenager? What did you do in your spare time? I mean, there's so many questions that, usually when there's laughter, that's always, it puts people at ease. But a lot of these questions just trigger, nice memories. And then you just take it from there, And I know, Catherine, you brought a photograph with you.
I did, yes, which we are definitely going to talk about. It was a crazy day in time. But I believe we have a video that you've shared with us. We wanted to play for our listeners.
My name is Mary Michael, because there was a nun who asked my mother to have her have me take Michael for a confirmation name. That's why it's strange. Everybody always sort of laughs at me when I tell them that my middle name is Michael. My grandfather, the important thing about him is that he went to the gold rush. When he got back, he had enough money to buy this house. So I guess that's the most important thing about him. We were self-sufficient. Everybody had a pig and a chickens Couldn't help but like living here. A lot of people came to live here for a short time and never left.
That's beautiful.
She's one of my favorite people. Yeah.
That's powerful. I was thinking about, this idea of making things more tangible for people because they have maybe an item or something in their family that's like a symbol that their memories are tethered to items, and the items themselves bring up all the things. And have you dealt with someone where they had an item that you just remember and how powerful it was for them in their memory?
Yes, definitely. We interviewed one man who brought things that belonged to his father. I think, if I remember correctly, there was a chair that his father made. That wasn't his career, but he made this chair. And it was very meaningful to him, and he brought it, and there are other items. Yeah, items are very powerful, because, we all have I'm looking on my desk here to see if I have anything. We all have things that, we're attached to, like a talisman, right?
Right.
Some people, when they start to write, I do a little fiction writing myself. When I know that in classes, teachers have said, if you have something like a candle or something that's meaningful to you, bring it out and start writing. So, items really do have power to them when they have meaning. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I do ask people to bring something. Yeah.
Okay, so we're about to take a break, but just to set this up, where Judy is going to walk me through kind of how her memoir process happens with her clients. So shortly, I'll share a photo from something that happened with my family a few years ago, and then Judy will. I'm excited. We haven't practiced this or anything, so we're just getting the raw experience of it, which I think is good.
Can I also talk about the spice thing? Because I feel like if we do both, yeah, that would be good. Because it's like both senses, So.
Yes,
Okay,
definitely.
Olfactory is so powerful when you start talking about memories. Immediately things start coming back, especially if it's tied to food in the kitchen. Right now, we're about to go to a break, and I want to introduce what's about to come across the screen, which is a part of the Breathe series that I participated in for my residency at the Carver. I created a piece called Action or Apathy with my friend Jed Craddock, and we're going to view a little bit of that and listen to a song called Action or Apathy.
Wait, remain in a vegetative state or hesitate till it's much too late. Poised in station, no noise or creation, as time is wasted. No thrill is my only chance to chill. So sit by my windowsill as if I got time to kill. There's no time to kill. Will I wait? Will I wait? Will I wait? The energy crescendos like resonant strings as I reflect on the tangible offerings to the universe before the morning light disperses from my cloudy eyes.
Welcome back. I just want to keep listening. I just want to keep doing poetry music and talking to Judy all day today.
Yay. That was Action or Apathy by Andrea Vocab Sanderson, Moi, featuring Jed Craddock.
That was beautiful.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's a song about just getting up and carpe diem, which sometimes we get a little intimidated by. And I think, I was thinking about how some people might be intimidated about the idea of trying to record their family memoirs and the weight of that, because you want to make sure you're doing it correctly. But the services you provide, you help people, simplify it and also make it just something practical for them. And we're going to jump into that, right?
Yeah, let's do it. So
First of all, it's never a test where people have to get the facts right. If they get the year wrong or the name wrong, it's really about the feeling that comes out when they talk about something that's meaningful to them. And that's what I try to encourage. So are we ready to do this with you, Catherine?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm very excited because you brought a photo. So I wanted to, are you going to show it?
Yes, Richard will. There it is. Put it on screen.
So I wanted you to first just describe the picture for people.
Sure. So this picture is of a landscape in Hawaii. It's at a park called Aloha Aina Park, which is on Hickam Air Force Base. And there are different types of trees. There's palm trees. There's a paved path. And in the distance is the back of my husband and my 2-year-old son at the time. They're walking away from the camera.
And so what made you choose this picture?
I chose this picture because I don't know if you guys remember back in 2018 in Hawaii, there was the ballistic missile warning that went through the emergency alert system. And we received that on our phones. It was in the morning, like after breakfast. And it said, "This is not a drill." And so there was I think it took about 40 minutes for that to resolve, for the word to get out that actually was not a real threat. But there was a good 5 minutes there where we're thinking, okay, this is it. And that picture was taken later that afternoon. And so it just, whenever I think of Hawaii, those two memories are very much interlinked. I always think of that day specifically because it's just a really sobering experience of, it was interesting. It was like maybe 30 seconds of panic. And then it very quickly transformed into just this really indescribable feeling of peace and surrender, because there was nothing we could do. And so that feeling in particular, like that feeling of peace, is what I have attached to that memory of that photo.
That's incredible. I don't think anyone of us, I've never certainly experienced that. And I remember it on the news. Yeah. Can you describe a little more about like what was going on in your body and your mind for those few minutes?
Yeah. I remember my husband being upstairs. He was changing Michael's, I don't know, pull up, whatever it was. And I was finishing breakfast, and I saw the alert, had that feeling like straight to my gut of kind of panic. And I yelled upstairs to my husband, like, "There's a missile coming." It was just so surreal. And then again, very quickly, it didn't take very long. And I don't know what that thing is that happened, where it was just like, I wasn't worried anymore. I just wanted to be with my family. I remember feeling safe that I was with my husband and my son, despite the circumstances.
Has that impacted your life since? Have you had any reaction?
Yeah, I think it took a couple days for it to sink in, like what actually happened. I think to the rest of the world, there were like some jokes that were made about it, like how Hawaii can't, they kind of can't get their stuff together, but it was a very real experience, and I think that it continues to have an effect on just how I view life in general. That like we always kind of say, like not to take things for granted, but I think that experience really drove that home for me. It is you just don't know, like you don't know what's going to happen. And so I think it has put me more into like just being more intentional about being present with people.
That's an amazing take on it, and it obviously impacted the way you view life now. Because I know I love 1940 movies made in England during World War II,
Mhm.
and so you see the Blitz and what the families went through, but you actually experienced it. So you just get so much more of an appreciation of what people go through in difficult times.
Yeah,
I
thank
can see
you.
I can see how that would affect your outlook on things. I assume that it did.
Oh, yes. And I think it took a while for me to, I think, internalize it over a long period of time, like in a healthy way and not in a fatalistic way. you know, there was like some recalibrating that had to happen in my thinking because of that experience. Um, but yeah, it was just this really interesting mix of like totally scary, but also to me, it was a very spiritual experience. That feeling of peace, to me, that was a spiritual experience of just knowing that like everything's okay. Everything's going to be okay. It's not up to me,
It's amazing. Have you and your husband talked to Michael about it?
Not yet. Yeah, clearly he was too young at the time. We haven't talked to him about it just yet, but eventually.
Yeah. I love that there's a theme in this. It's not just a picture about, you know, a beautiful beach. I mean, there's a real theme here, and it had a real impact on your life. And I love to explore those themes. And you also, if we have a minute, you also talked about your grandmother's spices and cooking.
Oh yes. So I'm half Lebanese, and my mother's mom, her name was Anne, and she was just an amazing. She could do everything. She was a cook. She did sewing. She could make anything. But I have very vivid memories of her and her love for cooking and sharing that with our family. So um, she had a mint garden on the side of, she lived in this yellow brick house up in Pennsylvania. She had a mint garden on the side of her house, and there was always mint in our salads, or um, she used a lot of cumin spice in her cooking. And so yes, that was when I think of her, I think of all this delicious food, and that's, I felt her love through her cooking.
Yeah. I mean, I think there you could explore themes. We won't go into it now, but did that inspire a love of cooking, a love of travel, a love of just being home and having that sense of security, or having the importance of having your own family that you can cook for? I mean, there's so many themes to be explored, I think, which is what I try to do. I try to have a theme, to choose a theme that's meaningful to the person. We work together to choose that theme, so it's not just stories, but they come away with a sense of like, oh, this piece really has meaning to my life. It's not just about this story, that story, but something that impacted me, how it impacted me, and what messages I want to and lessons I want to impart maybe to my children and grandchildren. So I like to get sort of deep when I do the video memoir, but always, as I said, as a conversation, nothing intimidating.
Right. Well, and it's interesting you talk about themes because um it's almost like not, I don't want to say curating. That makes it sound like you're editing out parts. But you're like picking up on key things that we ourselves maybe don't see because we're too close to it, so to speak, is that something that you find easy to do when you're listening to people, to pick up on those themes, or do you feel like you have to dig real deep to find that?
I think I do it in maybe two different ways. One, when I'm listening to them and I'm hearing things that they may not be aware of, or maybe they are aware of it. I mean, you certainly are aware of it with the picture, what happened in Hawaii. But then when I get to the editing, I can, then I can actually physically almost, take out the sections or remove sections that, don't really speak to the important issues. I think people really want to have something, the final product, to be meaningful to them. So that's my responsibility, to give them something that they really want. They may not know they want it, but when they receive it and they say, oh, there's really an important message here that I want my children to know. This is something about me that's meaningful. That I feel like is my job. And I love doing it. I love editing. I mean, I could sit here all day long and forget to eat. That doesn't usually happen to me. So
Vocab, any other question for Judy?
I think that it's really powerful that themes run in people's lives, and we are sometimes, as we walk through our life, we are unaware of these themes that keep reoccurring until, I think, supernaturally sometimes people bring it up to us, and then we're all of a sudden aware that that something powerful is happening. And I was wondering, kind of like bringing back that idea of the symbol. Is there a part of this that, like, what do you find really just fulfilling in after you conclude certain projects?
what do I find fulfilling about
Yeah,
it?
like something that's just really fulfilling to you.
I think just having a sense of, as I said, a meaningful product that I can give somebody, but also having an arc, having like the beginning and showing how they changed and what they learned, and then ending on that note. It's like telling a really good story. And that's what it is. It's storytelling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. Well, we're going to go to another break. And during this break, we're going to hear a song called Magic by Jeff Woods.
'Cause you're magic. Everything about you is magic. Every little piece of you is magic. I for one know I gotta have it. Every single day it's tragic to know that other people don't have it nearly as good as I have it. 'Cause being with you is pure magic. Every single day. Keeping up with you never ends. You go till you're gone. We never end up where we began. I never can tell how far we'll go. Into your dreams, your heart and your soul. 'Cause you're magic.
That was Magic by Jeff Wood. He's one of our musicians in residence with Hearts Need Art. Right before the break, Judy, you touched on kind of, your storytelling. You're creating this story for people. And I'm curious if you could share about, so with Hearts Need Art, oftentimes we have patients or caregivers that want to be able to record special memories or part of their family history while they're in the hospital. And so I'm wondering if you could talk a little about maybe some tips for ways they could start to do that with each other.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I always encourage people to carry a notebook with them. So if they can write down memories, and sometimes you have an idea or a memory comes up and you get busy with something else. But if you can take the few minutes to write it down. There's also, if there's a caregiver there who has a phone with there's a recording option, right? App. They can use a voice memo. They can record the person, talking about, whatever memory comes up. It's really important for people who are in the hospital, who are undergoing who have memory issues, dementia, etc., to be encouraged to talk. And there's also a lot of depression in the world now. I mean, especially with the pandemic, people are isolated, have been isolated, some still are isolated, and there's a lot of loneliness. And reminiscing is really a positive step. I think it's important for people to be able to do that. And yeah, just recording or writing notes, and the caregivers can help with that.
And I think that I know for me, sometimes with any creative thing, I sometimes get caught up in wanting, like before I even get started, I get stuck because I want it to be perfect right off the bat. Um, but I think like the suggestion of, just take out your phone and do an audio recording, and then you have the content. You can always go back and start to create a memoir like you do, or edit out, or put the pieces together.
Yeah, it's really great to just do a rough draft. You don't have to. There's no judging. You're not. You don't. You just write. Just write. And I always. I mean, if you can write by hand, there's like a mind hand or whatever connection. The words just. I mean, I'm sure vocab you can explain it better, but it just the words come out faster, easier. You're more in touch with your, unconscious or subconscious, I guess. That way with your hand. But if you need to use your computer, or if you want to do a voice memo, these are gems that if you don't let them out, people aren't going to know about. And you want to share them. You want them even for yourself. And I think it's really helpful for people who have been alone for so long and isolated to start, writing and getting those thoughts out and sharing them. Join a class. You could start a little group with your, peers, just sharing little snippets. Self-expression. It's all really important.
Have you used music in the past for people when it comes to their memories and things of that nature? And do you have any stories around music as the focus?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have any stories, but music adds a lot of mood to a piece. So I love to add music. I'm a stickler for music rights, so I'm very careful. I can't use anything that I don't have the rights to. So if someone has, if they play a piece, or so I'm aware of that. But yeah, there are plenty of places you can buy music, needle drops, and that kind of thing. But music adds a lot. You were talking before, vocab, I think, about the senses. The senses, all five senses. I mean, the spices, trigger memories, and music. I mean, I know there was a study in nursing homes, wasn't there, about
Right.
people with dementia. They put on music that they loved when they were maybe 21 years old, and they just started dancing. They hadn't moved in so long, and it just, it's very powerful. So yes, definitely I use music.
Yeah, it's very interesting how sometimes you cannot remember song lyrics, but as soon as a song comes on, you're in it, and you can sing the song along with the song as long as it's playing. There's definitely a magic to it. Yeah.
So anyway, it's not only about family legacy, it's also about anniversaries. People want to celebrate and show videos. But I just had this funny thought today. I don't know how it came up, but I compare my business to like a small little local corner store. And when I thought that, I went, oh yeah, there was a corner store where I grew up. I grew up in New York City. And the owner, he sold newspapers, cigars, cigarettes, and candy, right? And we used to go, I wasn't allowed to eat candy, but we used to go and like get candy with our allowance and like stuff it in our pockets, And he didn't tell my parents. He knew everybody on the block, but he always had a cigar in his mouth. I remember that, But just these little memories, New York City is very different now. That storekeeper, he moved around the corner to a modern building, and now he's not there anymore. I'm sure he's long gone, but the neighborhoods change. So it's nice to hear this, stories about what things were like, when we were kids.
Yeah, it's weird even with like my 6-year-old, just technological differences, like dial up internet, like that's not a thing anymore, not really. But I had one other question about, and you had shared this back when we talked several weeks ago, just some ideas for people that are trying to do this with their loved ones kind of on the spot. what are some simple things they can do to the environment that they're filming in that would make it better quality? Like just some things to consider about the setting that you're in.
Right. Turn off all air conditioning, turn off all phones and ringers, any kind of ringers. It's good to do it in a room that has a rug so you don't get, the echoey effect. You want to have, test out the lighting, have a lamp or something. Don't film towards a window on a sunny day because the person, you won't be able to see their features. And don't let them fidget with something. A lot of times if you have a microphone, like a lavalier you put up here, and then they hit themselves, you hear that noise. Have them put a glass of water next to the person they're interviewing because the sound that you make when you're thirsty is, not great. Let's see, what else? Lighting, sound. Always have them start with a full sentence. If you ask a question, if you say, "How are you today?" and you say, "Fine." Well, what does that mean? You say, "Today I'm really doing great. You're really feeling fine because this just happened." Or have them elaborate as much as possible, but have them start with a full sentence. If the interviewer is not going to be on camera, you want them to, talk as if they're telling a story to the camera. And then there's always the issue of where to look. It's now, pretty standard that you don't look directly at the camera, but you look off to the side. So that, and I think that's probably it. But any nervous habits, some people, tap their feet or something. You just want to keep that to a minimum.
No feet tapping. No.
And if they can take their glasses off, if you see the reflection, that's also helpful.
Avoiding the glare.
Yeah.
There's so much involved in that, but I think it's beautiful that you're willing to walk people through that process. So going back to the beginning of your story, you said you interviewed like several people in one day, and then you had this moment. So what did you start with? Like, what tools did you start with when you started recording people, and who did you start with? Did you start with family, and did you start with friends? Did you start with other strangers?
Well, years back, I've always been into my three daughters will tell you that I used to videotape their birthday parties, which they didn't appreciate because I just loved the little conversation that I could like sneak in and hear, And my cousin, my fourth cousin, had a relative. I can't remember the connection there, but he came over and I interviewed him because he was quite elderly. And I know my aunt, I recorded her on my phone, just not with a camera. So I heard, and I asked her questions. So I've always done it. When I interviewed, are you talking about when I did the video about my town, when I interviewed all those people?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I just, well, one interview takes a full day, or half a day. I mean, you can't do more than one in a day. It's exhausting. And, when you you have to set up your equipment. So what did I start with? A tripod and a camera. But nowadays, the cell phones are better than a lot of cameras. Yes. So you here, I'll pick up my cell phone. So you have your cell phone. I don't have the equipment right in here, but you get a holder for the phone, and you never hold it vertically. You hold it horizontally. So a camera for the phone. A holder, and that holder goes into a tripod. And then you can have you can have a mic that you can connect to the phone, or you can just use the microphone from the phone itself. And if you want to get lights, that gets expensive and complicated. But
that's what people hire you for, Judy.
Right. For being you in.
By the way, the second giveaway, can I tell you what it is?
Yes, because we have just a little bit of time left, and we want.
So the second giveaway is I would love to offer this. one of your listeners. I will interview them. We'll spend like a half hour on Zoom. They'll give me maybe 3 to 5 pictures, a piece of music that they like, and I'll put something together for them. No charge.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
The caveat is, would you put it on your, put it, they would have to agree, and you would have to agree that you put it on your Facebook page or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, we will put the details for that giveaway in the comments, so that people can get their submissions in for that. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you, Judy?
They can go to my website, which is videomemoircreations.com, and there's a contact page there. So I think that would be the best way to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
For
This is
all of that.
great. Thank you so much, both of you. Appreciate it.
And thank you for your generosity and just being willing to share your experiences with this and giving us those tools and those tips so that we can start telling our stories with our families and our loved ones. Right now, we're going to go to another break, and we're going to listen to a song called I Wish by myself, Andrea Vocab Sanderson, and Nick Levins.
I have wanted you to make my life feel brand new. Ooh. And I wish, yeah. Traverse the universe on pins and needles, collecting scarab beetle shells, peeking the universe with hope to see where angels dwell. One never plans to fail, but the travail of rebirth is hell on earth. We feel the labor pains beneath our skin and skirt. Imagine being so desperate to break free from these human chains. It hurts. We try tremendously to put our plans to work, dig wells in the dirt, then cast our change into infinity, longing and wishing, hoping and desiring our fate will meet good fortune with the future we're admiring, until we're elevated with higher beings, truly overseeing without perspiring.
Sweat it out, get it out. All right, sorry, I was all singing along there. That was my song, I Wish, and it's cool because it appears on one of my albums as well as the band's album, The Foreign Arm. Excited to, share these things with you all. Thank you so much for allowing Hearts Need Arts, Arts for the Health of It. Thank you for allowing us to play the music.
So, hey, I love dorks. All right. Vocab, did you have any memoir activity that you wanted to share with our listeners today, just based on what we had talked with Judy about? Go ahead.
I did. So, okay, let me go into the story. I have to tell that this has, I always, whenever I teach creative writing, I'm like, don't give us these long stories about why you wrote. But in this situation, I need to. I felt like it was really powerful that we were talking about how this episode could be called A Day at the Beach, because you brought your picture with your son and your husband, walking towards the beach. And, and that was the memories you started evoking. And so I was like, I would like to share a poem about a father-son relationship in A Day at the Beach. And it's crazy because I had something completely different that I was going to share. But when I saw the picture, when I was thinking the show through and thinking about what you were going to share and everything, I was like, I have that story. Yes. So I know a guitarist named Berto. He plays Spanish guitar, and he wanted a memorial piece written about his dad, who taught him how to surf, and just kind of like their story from moving from one place to another. So anyways, he asked me to write the piece, and here is the piece. It's called A Mi Padre. It was published in the San Antonio Express News, I think last year, something like that. And here we go. A Mi Padre. The ocean glitters golden in memory. The shore is saturated with good times. The convergence of bodies of water meeting for the first time. Salt over skin speaks to me sentimentally. White sand between toes, sea breeze upon my nose, the ebb and flow of cool liquid, the pounding, rolling, rushing, and courageous as a man migrating to a new beginning, rinsing me in understanding and tugging me to undertow. I embrace the tide, strong as my father's arms and surmounting to a crest. Waves of love surround me with froth and foam, lifting me as I surf, sending me out to sea. Sunlight lines honey-colored dunes. Wind choreographs the movement of colorful kites and parasols above the beach where exalted ribbons float through the azure skyline. They glide among the albatross. We are all islands unto ourselves with tiny hills that peak by the sea. Palms and trees stipple in the landscape, and my heart feels free from a father's love that marks my emancipation. Together we have built like castillos de arena, yet we are immovable. Sandcastles, never erased, never eroding, never washed away. Never erased, never eroding, never washed away. They stay grounded at sea level. Fortress of grains, warmed dry by the sun. Shells embedded in the topography. We lounge like beach bums, our sandy legs stretched out wide as the firmament of the Pacific. We gaze into the waters to see where the sky lands upon the ocean, an endless kiss that ombres, sky blue to marine blue, a hue so deep our hearts sink into the sight.
I need a minute. Do we have extra minutes? When did you write that?
I wrote that poem, I want to say, was that last year that I wrote? It was either last year or the year before last, but it's been in the last 2 years that I've written that poem. And again, Bertho just kind of talked a little bit about his dad and growing up. And I wrote that piece, but I really tied it into my own heart because I was able to, one of my fond memories is going to Maui with my dad, my family on his side. And just, lounging at the beach is, just those things that can be created, the memories. And I just wanted to give a lot of imagery to, the moment.
That you did. The sandcastles, the part about the sandcastles, especially because growing up in Florida and frequenting the beach, like we're always building sandcastles and they inevitably get washed away. But so that part, I could feel that. But it's also an interesting, like it's a whole other avenue that people could use for themselves or with their loved ones that, maybe it isn't a video. It could be talking with them and creating a poem or a short story or an art piece that represents whatever you're trying to capture. So
absolutely. Setting is such a powerful part of memory. And sometimes we think of setting as just a location, but setting is time, era, it's weather, it's environment, it's the culture of that time. All those things play into the setting. And, we can, the little things make a big difference when you take the time to describe the little things. So.
Speaking of which, you were recently on a little nature, I want to say retreat, but you did a workshop and you were kind of out in the boonies, I think. And you created this art piece. Do you feel like sharing?
Oh, yeah. So yes, I did that. But so the Briscoe Museum for Dream Week and things of that nature, they did a Art in the Wild and Write in the Wild. And it was about Thomas Mangelson's photography. And he spends a lot of time photographing grizzly bears. And so I decided I was going to paint a bear, watercolor bear.
I want to see this. There it is.
So the picture under belongs to another young lady was there, but that's my watercolor bear up there on top.
Oh my gosh. If you're listening and not watching, there's this big yellow sun at the top and blue sky behind it and this amazing bear right in the foreground.
Yeah, and what I did was I picked up a leaf off the ground and I painted around the leaf, and I was like, well, let me create a little pattern. So I was like, let me do 4 leaves. So I did 4 leaves, and then I just kind of made the leaves become a part of the bear.
I love it. Oh,
Thank
thank you for
you.
sharing that.
That's not my medium, but I'm like, okay, I'm starting to like this a little
It
more.
is now.
Yeah.
It's coming out of you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Being a part of this podcast has really, really made me think about different ways to incorporate art, other forms of art into my life that maybe I hadn't. And I hope that, our viewers and listeners, you're getting that same experience, that you're trying it, you're taking that leap of faith and saying, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to paint, I'm going to write a poem,
Yeah, similarly, what I've noticed, so I haven't told you this, but when I usually take a lunch walk break and I'm just listening to the sounds I hear. And when I get home, I'm like writing down what I hear. And I don't know that they're poems, but there's writing happening. And I have you to thank for that.
Oh, I'm so excited. That makes me really happy to hear that. Yeah. So, I think we have some things to remind people about and talk about.
Real quick, we want to remind you of our Give and Garden fundraiser for Hearts Need Art. You can go purchase your plants for your garden, and 50% of the proceeds will go directly to us. We also want to thank Jane Phepps and the Nancy Smith Hurd Foundation for supporting this podcast and just giving us the ability to share all these incredible people from all over the world to just inspire you to keep creating. So on
Thank
that note,
you.
thanks
You're
for
so kind.
Make sure you like or subscribe or follow us wherever you are listening or watching, and we will see you next week. Take care, everyone.
Don't forget to send out your hearts.
Yes, send your hearts.
Thank you for listening to Arts for the Health of It. This episode is produced by Hearts Need Art, creative support for patients and caregivers. You can support the show and help others learn about the healing power of the arts by visiting heartsneedart.org. The views expressed on this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Hearts Need Art, their staff, board members, or other affiliates. All content is created for informational purposes only. This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice or to diagnose and treat any health condition. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health professional with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of